Hi, we're excited that you are tuning in. It is Music Monday, and 2 weeks ago, we told you every other week we're going to throw some Music Monday at you and give you some tips and tricks and ideas on how to improve your craft, like whatever your instrument is, whether it's keyboard, guitar, bass, or drums, and there may even be some that would be applicable beyond those. So last time what we did was, if you remember, Mandy showed you some inversions on the keyboard and kind of taught you how to use that within your playing. And today we want to go ahead and give you another tool to put in your toolbox, this time specifically for guitar. What we're going to learn about today is a capo, which is this mysterious and bizarre looking instrument. There's a lot of different things that you can use a capo for. There's a lot of different types of capos, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on any one part, but I just want to give you a quick overview so you have it and you kind of an idea of what the idea is. Really, what a capo is, it's a device that's used to mimic if you were to put your finger down across all six. Like that's open, and that's, so it's holding all six strings at a place that's higher than open, right? And the reasons for this, gosh, there's a ton. We'll talk about those in a minute. Really, the biggest thing that I wanted to share just so far as the functionality, there's really, as I've seen, there's only a few different types that are super popular. One of the capos, it's like this, like it's kind of spring-loaded, so you kind of can move the tension up and down, and that allows you to quickly like grab it off of a headstock and put it into place and play. There's another type that you put it on, but then you like hand tighten it down, like your tension from, like you set it what it wants to be. And then there's some that even like roll, and like they can sit up here on the headstock and then roll into place. I've never had one of those, so I don't know anything about them, but I like this style better than the hand tension ones, because just in the context that I play, usually we're moving from one song to the next, and there's transitions needed, and you have to be able to move it pretty quickly in order to kind of not have awkward transitions. And so the quick change one where you have kind of the device to pull in and out is perfect for me. There are a few different brands that have this kind of a setup. I'm actually going to pitch the one that I use to you just because I like it the most. I think probably the most popular brand is a brand called Kaiser, K-Y-S-E-R, and I see those everywhere. And overall, they're good capos. I've had a Kaiser capo in the past. The reason that I switched a number of years ago, I just happened to order this one on a whim because I needed a new capo, and the brand is G7th. And the reason that I love these is because a lot of capos, the Kaiser one for me, what I found was that when you put it on, the tension from the spring was so tight that it would knock my strings out of tune. Like I would play with the capo on, and then when I pulled it off, all my strings would be knocked out of tune because the tension was so tight. And that's why a lot of people like the capos where you can hand set tension, because you can avoid that. This is almost like in the dead center. This tension on this spring is just to where I would want my hand tension to be, so it's a perfect middle ground. So G7, if you're looking for one, once we get this posted and get it on, we'll put a link down, and I'll link to G7 at one or two of the websites where you can get them. But they're great capos. They're pretty cost effective, and so I would highly recommend them. So far as how to use a capo, what does it do? Like, what's some purposes? I guess at its most simple, the idea is that as you move it up, you're changing the sound of the guitar, and so a lot of people will use it solely for like effect. Like one thing that I've done in worship services, if we just didn't happen to have a mandolin player, I've put it on real high, and like it gets real high pitched and kind of mandolin-ish, not quite there. I'm sure that there will be very offended mandolin players who comment like it doesn't sound anything like a mandolin. I get it. All right, you don't have to yell. But yeah, so like that's one use for a capo. But I would say, especially if you're new to maybe even novice level, or if you accompany yourself a lot when you're singing, Probably the most practical use that I've found for a capo is it allows you to play certain chord shapes that you might be familiar with, but then play them in other keys. And I know that sounds kind of confusing. So basically what I mean is this. Say that you are just learning. A lot of students, when they first play guitar, they learn it by playing in the key of G. It's a good key to learn in. It has a lot of chords that you can pick up pretty quickly. And so like, let's say that you know the G shapes, like a G, C, D, D over F sharp, E minor. Like you've got these chords that you use in the key of G. But now let's say that you've discovered when you sing, maybe your voice hits better in the key of A. Well, I mean, you can do one of two things. One, you can either learn all of the chords in the key of A, like you can learn an A chord and from there, or if you already know G, you can just put a capo on fret number 2, which is just like this. Frets are these little silver pieces of metal that go down in the middle of the guitar neck. And so you can put the capo on. I usually try to put it as straight up and down as I can and as close to the fret as I can. That usually does the best for me so far as tuning and all that. But now when you play this G shape, because you have the capo on, this is now an A chord. And so without going into all the theory that would be involved, I'm just gonna show you, like, if you have the strings open, the standard tuning on a guitar is E, A, D, G, B, E, okay? But if you put a capo on, what you're doing is you're taking all 6 strings and you're moving them up a whole step. 2 frets is a whole step. And so like what you have now is F sharp, B, E, A, C sharp, F sharp. It's tough to remember all these notes.
How sure are you about
I was like, I'm 90%. 90%, that's the notes. But what that does is it means that now the notes that you would have been holding down to create a G chord, if the capo were off, are now holding those chords a whole step, or holding those notes a whole step up, which allows you to play a G shape and it sound like an A chord, which is awesome because now you're playing in the key of A, like you're playing G, but now it's A. You're playing C, but now it's D. Playing D, but now it's E. That kind of thing. And so it can open the door, if you have to accompany yourself a lot, to learn shapes that you're familiar with, that you like, but then also move them into a key that fits your voice. And then one of the other big uses that I've seen is like if there's 2 guitar players, like 2 acoustic players, like one person will play open like this and say they're hitting a G chord, but let's say somebody else wants to also hit a G chord, but it sound a little bit different, so it makes it more interesting. You could maybe play a D and move it up. So if you were playing a D chord and if you put the capo here, it'd be an E, capo here would be an F, capo here would be a G. So now if you play D, that's a G chord because it's the D shape moved up to the key of G. So now that's a G, and that's a G. And so like if 2 different guitars are playing in the same key, they can sound a little bit different and they can play off of each other because they've got a little bit different sound. That's really the biggest uses, I would say, of a capo. The most practical ones that I've found, most basic ones maybe. There's really no wrong way to use a capo as long as you're eventually learning to play in all the keys that you want to be able to play in and you're not using it as like a crutch. I think that the capo can be an extraordinary tool for acoustic players and even for electric players on occasion. I think electric gets a lot more rare and not quite as useful as an acoustic guitar. But honestly, I mean, I've used a capo on an electric before. You can use it on any guitar and find some pretty successful results. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions and you're like, man, I like it, but I just need a little bit more information, don't be afraid to comment below on the video, and don't be afraid even to just email us. Anchorich, like my last name, ANKERICHSOM @gmail.com. just send your questions there and we can answer them that way. We may even try to put together like a resource, like a chart that shows, if you want to use G shapes, which are really common and really popular, what key would you be in if you put the capo on each fret, and we'll go up to 12. So that way all right, I want to play G shapes, but I want to play in the key of D. So which capo, which fret do I need to put the capo on? We'll put a resource up so you know that kind of stuff. But yeah, thanks for tuning in for Music Monday number 2. Don't be afraid to share this. Shoot people over to the page if they have questions. We'd love to answer them. Again, you guys are great. Have a great night and enjoy the rest of your Monday.